Ladies and gentlemen, there are people in this world who walk through fire and come out golden, people who aren't just shaped by adversity, they shape adversity. One such woman, rejection is not a wall. It feels like one at first, sudden, solid, immovable. It stops your momentum, interrupts your rhythm, and challenges your self-worth. But that's only if you see it as something that's in your way, not something pointing you in the right direction. Rejection isn't a stop sign, it's a signal, a redirect, a divine detour that shakes you loose from what isn't aligned, so you can recalibrate and refocus. Most people fear rejection because they believe it says something final about them, that they're not enough, not qualified, not deserving. But rejection doesn't say you're not worthy, it says not here, not yet, or not this. And that difference is everything. Rejection doesn't mean failure, it means feedback, it's data. It shows you what doesn't work, what isn't meant for you, or what you're meant to improve. It clarifies, it sharpens, and it teaches, but you have to be willing to lean into it instead of running from it. You have to see rejection not as an obstacle, but as an instrument. The greatest artists, leaders, creators, and warriors weren't forged in applause. They were shaped in silence, in resistance, in the sting of being overlooked. And in those moments, they didn't shrink. They studied, they practiced, they evolved. They used rejection as fuel, not as a cage. It's easy to believe that rejection is a reflection of your potential, but more often it's a reflection of someone else's limitations. You could be too bold for them, too raw, too different, too real. Maybe what you bring to the table threatens their structure, their comfort, their expectations. Maybe your vision outgrows the room they're offering, and instead of feeling defeated when they say no, you should be asking, why did I want their yes so badly in the first place? Sometimes we get so caught up in proving ourselves to the wrong people that we forget the goal isn't validation, it's alignment. Rejection often protects you from fitting into spaces that would have required you to shrink. Every time you're rejected, you're being rerouted, not because you're failing, but because you're being prepared. You're being strengthened, refined, and forced to grow into someone who no longer begs for access, but builds their own doors. Rejection strips away false promises. It removes illusions. It clears your path of distractions and forces you to ask hard questions. Who am I without this title, without their approval, without this opportunity I thought I needed? And if you sit with that discomfort long enough, something powerful happens. You find your center. You realize your identity doesn't collapse when something ends. You realize your value is not on trial. It's intrinsic, and no external no can strip you of it. Rejection also reveals what you truly desire. You start to see what matters and what doesn't. You start to move with purpose, not desperation. You stop chasing what glitters and start pursuing what grounds you, and the more rejection you face, the more resilient you become. You stop flinching at closed doors. You stop taking silence personally. You start to walk differently, with clarity, with conviction, with calm, because you're no longer waiting to be chosen. You're already chosen by life, by growth, by your own becoming, and that is the ultimate shift, when you no longer see rejection as punishment, but as precision. A tool that guides you away from what you wanted temporarily toward what you're built for eternally. Rejection gives you grit. It teaches you to trust timing. It humbles you and awakens you at the same time. It invites you to rise without applause, to continue without comfort, and to believe even when the world says not you, because it's not about them seeing it, it's about you not losing sight of it. When rejection comes, don't build a wall of bitterness. Build a path forward. Don't dwell on what didn't happen. Focus on what that no cleared the way for. Look around, reflect, realign, and when you rise again, and you will, you'll move with more depth, more wisdom, and more power than before. Not because everything worked out, but because everything that didn't made you stronger. Rejection is not a wall. It's a mirror, a teacher, a compass. And once you stop fearing it, you start using it. That's where your freedom begins. Detach your worth from approval. It sounds simple, but in a world obsessed with applause, validation has become the currency of self-esteem. You post something and wait for likes. You speak, then look for nods. You achieve something meaningful, but it doesn't feel complete until someone else affirms it. And just like that, your identity becomes outsourced. You begin to depend on external voices to echo what you should already know inside, that you are enough. But what happens when the applause stops, when no one notices, when the people you wanted to impress don't clap? If your worth is tied to their approval, then you will shrink every time they withhold it. The danger of chasing approval is that it puts your power in someone else's hands. Their opinions, their preferences, their mood on any given day become the measuring stick for your existence. You start bending, adapting, performing. You trade authenticity for acceptance. You water yourself down so you're easier to swallow, and maybe it works for a while. You get the likes, the compliments, the applause, but it never lasts because the high of being validated is always temporary. The crash that comes afterward, that's the part no one talks about. You begin to realize that the approval you crave is never quite enough. One compliment needs another to stay alive. One achievement quickly fades and needs to be followed by another. And before you know it, you're exhausted, constantly running, constantly chasing, constantly trying to be enough in someone else's eyes. But here's the truth: you will never be enough for people who are unsure of themselves. You will never meet standards that are built on someone else's insecurity, and trying to earn your worth through their approval is a race with no finish line. So what if you stopped? What if you decided that who you are as you are is not up for debate? What if you looked in the mirror and affirmed yourself first, before the world had a chance to decide how they feel about you today? That shift changes everything, because when your worth is anchored inside, external feedback becomes just that, feedback. Not identity, not direction, just noise you can listen to or let pass by. Detaching your worth from approval doesn't mean you become arrogant. It means you become whole. You no longer perform for love. You move from love. You no longer beg to be seen. You show up already knowing your value. And when someone doesn't approve, you don't collapse. You assess. You decide whether their opinion holds weight. You stop giving random people permission to define your self-perception. You stop waiting for applause to feel powerful. You know who you are, and that knowing becomes your compass. It's a quiet kind of strength, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself, the kind that doesn't rise and fall with every comment, compliment, or critique. You become consistent, grounded, peaceful, not because everyone agrees with you, but because you no longer require their agreement to feel at peace. We are taught to seek approval from the moment we can speak. Good job, be polite, say thank you, smile more. And while kindness and manners are important, the constant reward for being pleasing conditions us to value others' perception more than our own truth. We begin to forget how to simply be without needing to be liked. But you weren't born to be liked. You were born to be real, to be honest, to be whole. Approval is fickle. It changes with trends, moods, opinions. One day they love you, the next they forget you. And if your sense of worth is tethered to that shifting tide, you'll spend your whole life feeling like you're sinking. But when your worth comes from within, you become unshakable. You begin to speak, move, and create, not for validation, but from vision. You become more dangerous, more free, more alive. You don't owe the world a version of yourself that is digestible. You owe yourself the truth. And the truth is, you were never meant to be defined by likes, follows, praise, or applause. Those are bonuses, not foundations. Detaching your worth from approval doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care more about staying aligned with your truth than being accepted by people who only love you when you're easy to agree with. You become your own anchor, your own standard, and in that space, you stop chasing permission and start giving yourself power. Let pain shape power. Let it carve out the version of you that doesn't break under pressure, but evolves through it. Pain isn't always the enemy. Sometimes it's the sharpest sculptor of your strength. It peels back the layers of who you thought you were and introduces you to who you really are. It doesn't ask politely. It forces, it disrupts. It shows up when you least expect it, and it doesn't leave until it's taught you what you refuse to learn in comfort. The world tells you to avoid pain, numb it, run from it, silence it. But those who rise with depth, with wisdom, with fire, they didn't skip pain, they sat with it, they let it burn, they let it mold, and somehow, in the darkest moments, they started to change. When life stripped everything comfortable and familiar, they were left with raw truth. With clarity, with an inner voice that had been buried beneath distraction and noise. Power doesn't come from everything going right. It's born from walking through what went wrong and choosing not to be owned by it. When you've been shattered and still stand, something inside you shifts. You become less afraid of loss, less obsessed with control. You stop flinching every time life shakes, because you've already been through the storm, and you found out you could survive it. Let pain show you your depth. Let it break the illusion of who you needed to be and reveal the resilience of who you truly are. Some lessons only pain can teach. The lesson of patience when nothing is changing. The lesson of strength when no one is coming to save you. The lesson of value when someone you loved didn't choose you. These moments feel like the end, but they are often the beginning, not of a new chapter, but of a new identity. The hurt, the heartbreak, the disappointment, it's not in vain if you don't waste it. You can't always choose what breaks you, but you can choose what you build from it. Use it. Use the ache. Use the anger. Use the emptiness, not to destroy, but to rebuild. Use it to dig deeper into yourself, to understand your patterns, to heal the parts of you that kept hiding behind performance and perfection. Pain doesn't ask you to be heroic. It asks you to be honest, to finally admit what hurt you, what hardened you, what held you back. That honesty is uncomfortable, it's heavy, but it's also the birthplace of transformation. When you stop pretending that you're okay and start asking what this pain came to teach you, the shift begins. That's where your real power is born, not in pretending to be unbothered, but in learning to rise with scars that no longer make you feel ashamed. Every scar you carry is a map of where you've been. Proof that pain touched you but didn't finish you. You get to rewrite the meaning of those wounds. You get to say, this broke me open, not down. This turned my silence into a voice. This made me softer in heart but stronger in soul. Because when you go through deep pain and keep your heart alive, you become a force. You see more, you feel more, you lead with empathy, not ego, with presence, not performance. Let pain shape your perspective. Let it make you more intentional. Let it sharpen your boundaries. Let it clean out what was never truly yours. There's a reason the most powerful people in the world have the deepest stories. They've been through things they don't speak of, and that pain didn't ruin them. It rooted them. It made them precise, fierce. Discerning, they no longer chase things that don't feed their soul. They don't beg for love. They don't compromise their peace. They walk differently, because they've been through the fire and came out shaped by it. You can't fake power that's been earned through pain. It has a presence, a calm, a knowing, and the beautiful thing is, you don't need to be loud to be powerful. You just need to own every piece of your story. Even the ones that hurt, especially those, because in those moments where you felt most powerless, you were learning what it means to find power no one can take from you. Rejection trains resilience. It's one of the most painful teachers, but also one of the most effective. Every time you're told no, every time a door closes, every time someone overlooks you or underestimates you, there's an invitation hidden inside the sting, the invitation to rise. At first, rejection feels personal. It feels like a reflection of your value, like a spotlight on your inadequacy, but it's not. Rejection doesn't mean you're not good enough. It means that wasn't your place, not your timing, or not your match. And each time it happens, you get stronger if you let it. Each time your skin gets thicker, your focus sharper, and your spirit more unshakable. People often associate resilience with being untouched by failure or pain, but that's not what real resilience looks like. Real resilience is about being touched by both, and still choosing to stand. It's about hearing you're not what we're looking for, and responding with, that won't stop me. Rejection teaches you that your worth isn't up for public opinion. It shows you how to survive without applause, how to grow without approval, and how to keep moving even when no one is watching. It carves out the version of you that can't be broken by a bad day, a missed opportunity, or a careless comment. Each rejection forces you to face yourself. It strips away the illusions. You begin to ask tougher questions. You begin to evaluate what you're really chasing. Is it purpose or is it praise? Is it passion or popularity? Are you doing it because you love it or because you want to be loved for it? Rejection has a way of calling out your motives and making you clean up your why. That clarity, it makes you dangerous in the best way. Because when you're no longer fueled by the need to be accepted, you start doing work that's deeply honest, deeply focused, and deeply unstoppable. Rejection isn't meant to stop you, it's meant to sharpen you. The more it happens, the more resilient you become. You stop falling apart so easily. You stop overthinking every no. You stop internalizing every critique as truth, and instead you develop a quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't need validation to keep going. The kind that says, maybe not here, but somewhere. Maybe not now, but soon. That inner voice grows louder the more you train it through setbacks. It becomes your anchor in a world full of waves. Some of the most powerful people in the world weren't born that way. They were built through rejection. They faced closed doors, unanswered calls, overlooked moments, and still decided to persist. Their strength wasn't born from getting it right the first time. It came from getting it wrong, being told no, and coming back better. That's the kind of strength rejection trains in you. Not the loud, performative strength that demands attention, but the quiet, relentless kind that doesn't quit. Rejection builds a mental muscle. At first, it hurts every time you use it. You flinch, you doubt yourself, you wonder if it's worth it. But then, something shifts. You stop seeing rejection as a personal attack and start seeing it as part of the process. You begin to see that every no is bringing you closer to your right yes. You start treating it like a stepping stone instead of a brick wall. That shift in mindset is what separates those who give up from those who rise. Not because they were more talented, but because they were more trained. Resilience doesn't mean being unaffected. It means being unmoved. It means walking through disappointment without losing your direction. It means keeping your heart open even when you've been let down. It means trusting that what's meant for you can't be lost, even when you feel like you've failed. Rejection keeps testing you to see if you'll fold or if you'll fortify, and every time you choose to keep going, you're not just surviving, you're evolving. So let rejection do its work. Let it refine you, shape you, strengthen you. Let it strip away the parts of you that still seek permission and force you to own your power. The world won't always recognize your worth. Some doors won't open. Some people won't choose you. But resilience, that's something you get to choose every time, and once it's built, it doesn't need validation to exist. It moves with quiet authority. It speaks without shouting. It keeps going. No matter what, turn rejection into reflection. It's one of the most empowering choices you can make in the face of disappointment. When someone says no, when an opportunity slips through your hands, or when life simply doesn't unfold the way you envisioned, pause. Don't rush to react. Don't let the sting of being denied send you into self-doubt or self-criticism. Instead, sit with it, look at it, ask yourself what this rejection is trying to show you. Not everything that doesn't go your way is meant to break you. Sometimes it's meant to redirect you, to reveal something you couldn't see while you were chasing acceptance. Rejection can feel deeply personal. It can make you question your value, your effort, your place in the world. But that's the surface response, the immediate emotional sting. Go deeper, because rejection is often not a verdict, but a mirror. It reflects back what needs your attention, your intentions, your attachments, your identity. It gives you a moment to ask, was this truly meant for me? Or was I trying to force myself into something that wasn't aligned with my purpose? Sometimes we pursue things out of ego, fear, or the need for validation. Rejection has a way of removing those illusions and bringing truth into focus. Reflection turns rejection from a wound into a window. It allows you to see the situation not as a closed door, but as an open invitation to grow. Instead of asking, why wasn't I chosen? Ask, what can I learn? Maybe you were reaching for something that wasn't aligned with your long-term vision. Maybe the process exposed a weakness in your preparation. Maybe your worth was being tied too tightly to someone else's approval. Rejection, when faced with reflection, becomes less about blame and more about clarity. This doesn't mean rejection won't hurt. It will, especially when your heart was all in, when you gave your best, when you believed, when you tried, and still, it wasn't enough for them or it wasn't the right time. That pain is real and it deserves to be felt. But let it guide you inward instead of pulling you downward. Feel it fully, then reflect courageously. Pain can be a powerful teacher when you're willing to listen to it, not just run from it. Turning rejection into reflection also shifts the power dynamic. No longer are you at the mercy of someone else's decision. You reclaim the narrative. You become the one who decides what this moment means. And in doing so, you protect your spirit. You stay open, curious, and growing. Reflection teaches you how to extract wisdom from what once felt like failure. It transforms every no into a lesson, every closed door into a redirection, every disappointment into depth. You begin to see that rejection isn't an attack, it's information. It tells you something about where you are and where you're meant to be. It helps you refine your goals, sharpen your strategy, and reconnect with your authenticity. It shows you where you may have been compromising, performing, or reaching beyond what's truly aligned. With honest reflection, you can begin to notice patterns. Are you always seeking approval from the same types of people? Are you applying for things that don't match your values? Are you afraid to stand fully in who you are? These questions can't be answered in the noise. They require silence, stillness, reflection. As you get better at reflecting on rejection, you stop fearing it so much. You stop seeing it as the end. You start welcoming it as part of the path. The rejection still comes, but it doesn't destroy you. It teaches you. It sharpens you. It reminds you that your worth isn't tied to outcomes, and your identity isn't dependent on being chosen. You stop needing everything to go your way in order to stay grounded. That's a quiet kind of power, the kind that can't be taken away when someone else walks away. Not everyone will see your value. Not every opportunity will unfold the way you imagined. But that doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it means you're being prepared for something more fitting, something more true, something more you. But you'll only recognize it if you've done the inner work, if you've turned your rejection into reflection. So don't just react, reflect, and in that stillness you'll find not only understanding but direction, not just healing but transformation. Rejection builds inner authority. It pulls away the safety net of outside validation and dares you to believe in yourself when no one else does. That's where true power is forged. Not when everyone is cheering you on, but when the room is silent, the doors are closed, and you're left standing alone with your conviction. Rejection doesn't just sting, it exposes. It shows you how much of your confidence was built on applause. It reveals whether your belief in yourself was real or just a reflection of someone else's opinion. And once you've felt that, once you've stood in the fire of not being chosen and still held your head high, something shifts inside you. You stop asking for permission to be powerful. When you experience rejection and choose not to retreat, you begin to build an identity that isn't shaped by who accepts you. You stop letting the world define your capability. You start trusting your own voice more than their feedback. That's inner authority. It's not loud. It's not showy. It doesn't need to be. It's steady. It's clear. It's rooted in the knowing that your value isn't determined by who says yes to you. You carry your own yes. You become your own approval, and the moment you realize that, rejection loses its grip. Inner authority isn't arrogance. It's alignment. It's the quiet confidence that grows every time you face disappointment and don't fall apart. It's what's born in the aftermath of being overlooked, underappreciated, or misunderstood, and still showing up with purpose. You begin to realize that the opinions of others can be loud, but they're not law. You stop begging to be seen and start seeing yourself. Rejection becomes a tool, not a threat. It trains you to stop chasing and start choosing, to stop bending and start building, to stop performing and start becoming. The more you experience rejection, the more immune you become to its poison. You stop viewing it as a verdict and start seeing it as redirection. Not everyone will get you. Not every space will embrace you. Not every door will open, but the ones that do, after you've built your foundation without applause, those are the doors that lead to real purpose. You become selective. You become intentional. You stop settling for crumbs of approval because you've already tasted the fullness of self-trust. That is what inner authority feeds on, trusting yourself without needing a crowd to echo your worth. Rejection is a mirror. It shows you what you've been placing your worth in. If it breaks you, it's because it touched a place in you that still depends on being accepted to feel valuable. That's not weakness, it's insight. That's the space to rebuild. You go inward, you confront your need to be chosen, you question the stories you've been told about success, beauty, love, or credibility. And the more you reflect, the more those external definitions lose power over you. You begin to define success on your own terms. You begin to walk with a different posture, not one that pleads to be noticed, but one that is grounded, regardless of who's watching. Rejection forces you to dig deeper. It invites you to become someone who doesn't just act confident, but is confident even when the world says no. That kind of confidence isn't fragile. It's not shaken by criticism or deflated by silence. It's built on doing the hard thing repeatedly, believing in yourself when there's no evidence, creating when no one's clapping, staying grounded when nothing seems to be going your way. Each time you do that, you fortify your inner authority. You become less reactive, more resilient. You stop chasing validation because you've already found clarity. Eventually, you reach a point where rejection doesn't hurt the same way. It becomes feedback. It becomes noise. It becomes something you can sift through without losing your sense of direction. You don't take it as an attack. You take it as a test of how deeply you know yourself, a test of how far you've come, a test of whether you'll choose yourself even when others don't. Inner authority isn't given, it's built through every closed door, through every unanswered message, through every time you were underestimated. And when that authority takes root, no one can take it from you. You no longer need the world to say you're enough. You already decided that for yourself.